All right, says we're recording, so that's good. All right, hello, today is Wednesday, the 12th of October, and you already saw I sent you this out this morning. And as it says, today we will continue our discussion of object-oriented programming, also known as OOP. And I'm going to go into this product maintenance application that is in chapter 12 of our book. I'm going to go over it in depth. Says we'll also go over some other apps. So what I'm going to do is I've got two of the ones that I've written or rewritten, whatever, for that are actually assigned, but there's a heck of a lot of problems in chapter 12. So what the plan is this. I'll spend a while this morning going over this program from chapter 12. Then we're going to go back, and if you remember, we had that program that we wrote, that app where you would be able to search for games by either the publisher of the game or the name of the game. We're going to rewrite that so that it uses classes. All right. Then we're going to go on and do another app that's a fairly simplistic one that they call the flashcard app. It's another one of the ones that are assigned. I don't know where that'll leave us time-wise. It might be 10, it might be 11. It doesn't really matter. But I'm going to go over those three for today. And then tomorrow, I'm going to go over one that is much more complex in nature. And we'll spend the entire period just on that one, just so you've got some kind of an idea as far as what's going on. All right. So with that said, let's see. What do I have open here? Good deal. All right. So I'm going to come in here and change my share right away. And I'm going to change it so that we're looking at Visual Studio. There it is. Okay, now this is the product maintenance program. I literally have not touched it. I haven't done a thing with it. This is everything that's in here, okay, from the what's in chapter 12 in your book. Now, we've got a main form right here. Unfortunately, however you want to look at it, they made this main form pretty small, but it still is okay. We have a list box, and that list box is going to hold a collection or a list, whatever you want to call it, of our products. All right, so when the program runs, anything that we have got put in there, so anything we have pre-populated this with will go in here. When we click the add product, when we click that button, it brings up another form, this one right here, where it expects that we're going to add a code, a description, and a price. And once you put those in and you click save, it'll immediately repopulate this with the new product. Now, there's a few things about this, just so you know. There's very little, there's checking that's done in here to make sure that none of the three fields, and those three fields are the product code, the product description, and the product price. There are checks that are made in there to make sure none of those fields are empty and that indeed the product price is numeric. But as an example, I could keep putting in the same code, the same description, and the same price over and over and over again if there was a desire for some reason to do that. The reason I'm mentioning that is once we get into the last section of the book and we talk about databases, all right, then we will talk about a way to make sure that doesn't happen. All right. So for right now, it's not that big a thing is what I'm trying to tell you. So let's start by looking at the code that's in here. All right. And again, I'm not saying that every single thing that's in here is going to make sense, but my hope is after we go through something, if something doesn't make sense, you will ask. All right. I got rid of the things that are grayed out. We are using the generic in here, collections generic, and the reason for that is we're using a list to fill up the list box. Please remember that the reason that we use a list here is lists can dynamically grow and shrink as the program runs. All right. So what do we have? At the top of our program, we are creating, so this is, for lack of better words, this is our product list. All right, it may be empty at the beginning, it may not be. It doesn't matter one way or the other, but you have to be to the point where you're starting to understand the syntax of this. So we are creating a list. The list is going to be of type product. Well, where did we get product? Well, in a couple minutes, we're going to go look at the product.cs. All right, now in the past, what we have done is either we have put all the code right in here. All right, so all the product code would be right in here, which is totally permissible to do, or we would have created another form. The thing is, when we just have this list of products that we have, all right, there is no form necessary. All right, it literally is just going to be a list that we can add to or remove from. We're not talking about viewing it right now. So this will be a list of type product, and it will be referred to as products. And quite often when this is done, this is the pattern that takes place. All right, this will be the name, the singular name of your class. So we have a class that's called product.cs that we will look at in a minute. Then the name that you give to your variable is typically the same name, but it's lowercase and it's pluralized. In other words, it has an S on the end. It's not that it's mandatory that you do that, but it's just pretty much the practice that most people adhere to. I will tell you that this semester, my afternoon class, right now I'm teaching them a database management system that's called Mongodb. You don't have to worry a bit about it, not for now at least. But the reason I'm telling you that is when we sit there and we set up what's called our schema, or the way our database is supposed to look, we do it like this. But we say something like product equal product schema. All right. Then there's software that's built into the software we're using that automatically takes whatever we put here and it pluralizes it and it makes it lowercase. All I'm trying to tell you is this pattern of doing it this way, it ain't going away. All right. So what's next? Well, this is the main method, or the load method. You already know this, that this is the method that runs. So if I bring this up, this is the method that runs. And when I double click on the form, in other words, when the form gets loaded into memory, this is the routine that's going to run. So what are we doing here? We're saying products equal productdb.getProducts. What the heck is that? Well, there's another class over here that's called productdb. And you'll notice in that productdb class, if we take a look at it, all right, I'm going to go back for just a second. But if we take a look at it, what it's saying is, hey, that thing has to have a method inside of it called getProducts. So we're telling it to go out to this class. We're telling it to call this method. And we're telling it to take the results of that method and put it in here. That's exactly what we're telling it to do. And maybe that does make sense. Maybe that does not make sense. I don't know. But let's put a couple more comments in here. So we'll say routine that executes when form loaded into memory. All right. Then in here, we're saying call the getProducts method of the product DB class. Take the results of getProducts and put it into products, that variable that's called products. All right, and I'm going to take it for granted, whether this is right or not, that when I'm going over this, if it doesn't make sense, you're going to ask. So let's go into the products DB and let's find get products. So if I go into product and it's product DB, and I first of all, it better have a get products in here. If it doesn't, the program's going to blow up. And if you look, well, there's get products. So this is the routine that's going to run. It's all from line 12 through line 42. So it's about 30 lines. So let's take a look at it. All right. The first thing is it's saying, and you can see these are not my comments, these are Muroc's comments. This says, hey, what we want to do is we want to be able to create a directory into which we're going to create a file into which we're going to save all of our products. So if we don't have a directory already, make one. That's exactly what that's saying. If we don't have a directory already, make one. And a directory is just a folder. All right. Then as it says, create the object for the input stream for a text file. Now, this is hard because we haven't gone over chapter 17 yet, which is on files. All right. But basically what it's doing, for lack of better words, is it's opening up a brand new text file. And it says here, file mode, open or create. What that means is if the file exists, open it up so that we can add to it. If the file does not exist, all right, if it does not exist, then create it. We're not allowing you in this routine to write to the file. We're only allowing you to read from the file. All right. So again, we're creating a folder that's going to hold the file, and then we're telling it to open the file. And if the file doesn't exist, we're telling it to create the file. All right. Then, and this looks real similar to what we did before in the other one, but this is in here. All right. So in this routine, we are now creating a new list of products. All right. Now, this is a little confusing, but we talked about it yesterday. In English, what it's saying is, hey, look at the next record. If there's a record, so in other words, look at the next product. If there is a product, then we want to do this. All this stuff that's here. And then if there's not a new product, we're done. So we're just going to close that file and return products. That products right there that we're returning is what's going to end up getting stuffed into right there. All right. Okay, so let's continue on then. So then this product DB, if there is a new product, what are we doing here? We're telling it to read. Okay, so this is assuming that we've got a file with existing products in it. So we're telling it to read that entire row. And the delimiter that we're using between fields is a pipe sign. That's just the way they've set it up in here. All right. So they're saying, okay, we're going to create a new product. This is the new thing. That is instantiating or creating a new product object. What the heck does that mean? That means that it's going to go out and it's going to call the product.cs class, which is right here, and it's not passing anything into it. Since it's not passing anything into it, and I don't believe it is, let's double check. No, it's not. So it's telling it to call that parameterless constructor. And what that will do right here, since there's no code in there, it will set the code, which is a string, to the empty string. It will set the description, which is a string, to the empty string. And it will set the price, which is a decimal, to 0.00M. That's what that's doing. All right. Then we want to grab those fields. So we're now reading that line of text. All right. Now, so if you can imagine, I'm going to put a comment here. If you could imagine that it looked like this. So let's say that it said C# book like this, and then it had Murox C# programming 7th edition. And then it had $55.99. I'm making all this up. All right, so this thing, this pipe sign that you see here and here, that's the split thing. So after we split it, it's creating a new array. All right, and the array is going to be called columns. So in columns 0, that is now equal to C# book. All right, and columns 1 is equal to this. And columns 2, what I did there, but something I shouldn't have done. And finally, then columns 2, that is equal to 55.99. So that's what we've done. All right. We told it to read the line. I'm making that line up. I'm assuming the line looked like this. All right. And now I'm telling it to split it and create an array based off of that. And every time you find a pipe sign, take what came before it and put that into an array element. So that's an array element. That's an array element. And that's an array element. All right. Then it says create a new product. And the code is going to be this, or column 0. The description is going to be this, or Muroc C# Programming 7th edition. And the price is going to be this. The problem is when that stuff is stored, it's stored as text. So we've got to go and convert that price to a decimal. All right. So if we do, and I'll run this a few times in just a minute, but if we do all that stuff, all right, if we do all that stuff and we don't put a price in there that's numeric, if we leave it blank or we put hello or whatever, the program's going to break right there. Assuming that this is what we have, just assuming that's the first record. All right, that's going to fill this up. And it's going to add it to that product thing that we set up right here. Then it comes back up to the top and it says, hey, is there another record? So again, let's imagine that we had in here, I'm just going to say HTML book. All right, so that'll be Muroc's HTML. All right, I think their newest is the 4th edition, and I won't change the price. And then we'll have here, and we can put a space in here, it doesn't matter. All right, so finally we'll come in here and we'll put in, I don't know, JavaScript book. And it'll be Muroc's JavaScript programming. All right, and again, we won't change the price. So if we have these 3 in here, this will end up being filled in, becoming our first product. Then it'll come up again. It says, oh, there's another one. So the stuff in here will end up being our second product. Comes up, oh, there's another one. So that stuff will become the third product. All right. Then it comes up again. It says there are no more products. It falls out of the loop. So it says, close what I'm working on here, this text in, just close it and return products. In other words, I'm done. All right. Now that was a little lengthy, but hopefully what I just said made sense to you. All right. Then we come back. So again, we're still in product main here. So now we call fill product list box. Well, that's right here. And it's nice and short. And what this does is it uses a for each loop, which is a special kind of for loop. It results in less code than a for loop. You probably could have written this just as well as a for loop, but for each is really designed to work with C# collections. This is saying, go ahead and print all that stuff out. And for each record that you find in there, all right, you're going to call P, and what the heck is P? Well, that's the product. It's going to call get display text and put a tab in between each one. So where is this get display text from? Well, we jump back again to our product.cs class, and you'll notice there's get display text. We are calling it, and we're passing it in with a tab, so we're not going to use this one. If we passed it in with nothing, we'd use this. But we're passing it in with a tab. So what this says basically is I want you to go through everything. I want you to print out for each record the code, then a tab, then the price, which we're going to format to currency, and then a tab, and then the description. And it will do that. It will call this thing in our main routine as long as there are products. All right. So what I've gone through then has been what happens when you start up. All right. And again, when you add a product, okay, this is our add button. It's going to do some of the same stuff. It's got to come in here and say, hey, we got to bring up that new product form. So it does. It brings up the new product form. Then you got to create a new product. All right. And it calls for this new product form. It calls get new product. And where is get new product? Well, if we go back again to our products, is there a get new product in here? Not that I see. So we look in our product DB. Is there a get new product in here? No, not that I see. All right. So we come back into here again. All right. And again, we're calling new product form.get new product. Well, is there a get new product inside of here? There it is. What's it telling us to do? It's telling us to show that new form, and when it does, to return the product. What does that mean? In English, what's going to happen when you come into here and you click the add product button? It's going to bring up the other form. It's going to expect you to put a value into each one of these. And when you click save, it's going to say, okay, now we have to return to here and we have to call fill list box again because the list box now includes one more product. All right. And then let's look at what happens here when you call delete product. Well, the first thing it wants to do right here, this check, it's making sure you've chosen a product. If you haven't chosen a product, it doesn't do anything. Notice there's an if here, but there is no else. So if you have not chosen a product, nothing happens. Literally, nothing will happen. But if you have chosen a product, then what are we doing here? All right, we're creating a new product. All right, and we're going to add it onto this products array here. And notice we're even casting it to make sure it's the right type. Because, all right, we want to say that it is basically an array of products. And it says, are you sure? In fact, it's just one. It's the current product. It's whatever we highlighted. And it says, are you sure you want to delete this? So looking at the example we had before, if I use the Muroc C# Programming 7th edition, it would say, are you sure you want to delete Muroc C# Programming 7th edition? And then you'll notice here, similar to the way we've been using the message box, but they are literally saying dialog result button equals that message box. And if you click yes, it'll remove the product. And if you click no, nothing will happen because there's no else on there. So if you click yes right here, it calls products.remove. So again, we head back to our product.cs and we have to look in there. Is there a remove? No. So we go to our product DB. Is there a remove? Well, there's a save. All right, but I don't see one in there. So we go back again and we look in our product main. Is there a remove? No, there's a delete, but there's no remove. So we look in our other one that's right here. And we say products.remove. Well, let's see, I'm looking for the remove method in here. And actually what it should be doing, we've got to remove and then I say products. Okay. And products, add. Okay, so I want to go back in here to my product. What basically is going to happen when we tell it to remove is it's going to set that all the values in here back to nothing. It is literally going to get rid of our product. All right. Now, when we save, what do we want to do? Well, the first thing we have to do is we don't want to let bad data into the system. So we're calling that if is valid data. What that is it's going to call the routines from here. So it's going to call the is present for the product code. It's going to call the is present for the product description. And it's going to call the is decimal for price. All right. Now, notice again for the price, we're not calling the is present. But if we do this and there's nothing in there, that's going to fail. All right. So if we leave that blank, this will fail. Okay, there'll be nothing in that value. So we'll get the message that says whatever we put in there, like if we put hello, it should come in and say hello must be a valid decimal value. All right. But if it is okay, notice there's no message. If it is okay and we skip this, we just return the empty string. All right. And the other one that we're using in here, where is it? There's the is decimal. So we're doing the is present. If there's nothing in there, we say that it's a required field, and then we return that message. If there is something in there, we skip the if, and we return message, which is the empty string. And with the is decimal, again, we do the same thing. For completeness, the authors put the is in 32 in here, and they put the is within range. That said, all right, again, they put that in for completeness, but that said, they're not being used here. We definitely could use these. So, when we come in here and we are in our, where are we here? All right. When we do come in here and we're about to add the products and we come in and we put all this stuff in there, whoops, well, that's fine. We are calling, again, is valid data. But the only thing, again, that we're checking are the presence or absence of the code field, the presence or absence of the description field, and whether or not the price is a decimal or not. But we could have come in here and added another one where we would have come in and done something like this. So we would have said not is decimal, but we would have said here the is within range, and it would have still been the price field. All right. And we would have still had the tag, but then we would have needed to add a minimum and a maximum. So let's say that the price has to be at least a penny and it can't be more than $100. And those are going to be decimals, so they have to have an M at the end. Like that. So we could have done that as well. I'll leave that in there just to demonstrate that in a minute. There is no field in here that's an integer field, so there really is nothing we can test on that. So let me save that and we'll run it in just a moment. So it's checking to make sure everything in here is valid. All right. If it is not valid, if the error message is not empty, that means we had no errors. So we set success to true. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Here. If the error message is not empty, there were one or more errors. So one of these, two of these, three of these, or all four of these came back with an error. All right. And if that's the case, we set success equal to false. Again, what I typically called retval, but it's the same idea. We set up a message box that just says entry error. You screwed up. If we get down to here, that means all these tests succeeded So our success is still equal to true, so we just return success. Finally, if we cancel, we just do a this.close, which means don't do anything. All right, so let's try it. And I'm going to have to change my share, so I will. You will have to tell me, I'm going to change my share in just a second. But as we go on in here, and if I go from form to form, if the form itself that you're seeing goes away, please tell me, and then I'll change my share again. All right, so here it is. Am I right in assuming that you can see this thing up here now that says product maintenance? Is that correct? Okay, so this is what was in here to start with. I'm going to delete this. Now notice if I don't select anything and I click delete, nothing happens because nothing has been selected. But if I click on here again and I click delete product, it does, whoops. If I click delete product, not add, it says, are you sure you want to delete this as product ABC? If I click no, it just keeps me there. If I click yes, it's gone. So now my list is totally empty. There is nothing to select, so the delete basically is not even operational. All right, I'm not going to click exit because that's just I think that's just a this.close. So let's add a product. So I click add product. Do you see the new add product form here?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so I'll come in here and just say P1, and this will be product 1, and it'll have a price of $23.99. I click save and boom, there it is. I could click on it and delete it. I don't want to do that right now, but I could. All right, so I click add product. Let's just put in 3 of them here. And let's try to test some of this stuff. Now with nothing in here, code is a required field, description is a required field, price must be a valid decimal value. Okay, so all of that seemed to work. So if I put P2 in here, now you'll notice I only get description is a required field and price must be a valid decimal value. So if I put this in, product 2, all right, and I click, now it says price must be a valid decimal value. If I put a negative number in here, it says price must be between 1 cent and $100. So again, if I come in here and put in $100 and 1 cent, you can see it's not accepting this. But if I change this, let's just make it $55, save. It works. So I now have 2 things in here. And again, we could monkey with this and play with this because what you'll see is if I add another product, and I'll just put P3, and I'm going to put a long description in here. This is product number 3. It is a new product in our product line. All right, and for a price, I'll just put in $10. You'll notice what that does is it screws up the way this looks. All right, so I mean, well, how could we get around that? We could set a limit. We could come in there and set a limit if we wanted to do that on how big the description could be, or we probably could come in and jack around with it and add line breaks inside of there, etc. All right, so there are ways of fixing it. Okay, my question to you is I've now spent 35 minutes going over this. At least on a high level, does what's happening in here make sense to you?
Yes, yes, it does.
Okay, because it's a new way of looking at things. All right, in fact, there are a lot of books that are on object-oriented programming, and in those books, at least some of them that I've seen, they refer to OOP as being a new paradigm, P-A-R-A-D-I-G-M, and a paradigm is a shift in thought. And what I mean by that is you have to start thinking about doing this stuff in a different way. All right, and again, what did this buy us? All right, so I'm going to change my share. I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to change my share and go back to the program. All right. What exactly did this buy us? To be honest with you, in this case, not a whole heck of a lot. One thing that we've done though is we have created this validator class. This thing, with the stuff we looked at before, is present, is decimal, is in 32, and is within range. We are totally free to add more validation types of things into this if we need to, want to, etc. But now we can take this class and we can add it to any program that needs any kind of validation, and we can use it without having to constantly go back in and rewrite it. All right. And more than anything else, that's what it buys us. All right. So let me do a file. Right again, file, save all here. I'm going to leave this up, but I'm going to change my share. All right. And we're going to look at the stuff that's in the homework right now, okay? All right, so you'll notice there's a thing in here called flashcards. We're gonna go over all these in a minute. Then there's one called store inventory. Then there's one called bank login. Then there's one called game break. Then there's one called job estimate and another one called tile estimate. All right, now I'm going to look, not this second, but I'm going to look in the next, between today and tomorrow, because there's about five of them for you to do on here, and there's about 5 of them for you to do on the other one, and then there's one to do for the homework. And maybe I'm wrong on this, but to me, it's just too much to ask you to do. I don't mean you personally, but I mean all students. All right. So what we're going to do next is we are going to go over the flashcards example. No, I'm sorry. Before that, we're going to go over the game break example, because this, if you look right here, this is pretty much this program that we did previously. All right. If you remember, we did this search program, and you've got 5 different games, different publishers and prices. And you come in here and you put in either the name of a game or the name of a publisher, and you click search, and if it finds it, it prints out the information. And if it doesn't find it, it prints out game not found. All right. So now it says create a searchable database for a video game store. Technically, this is not a database. All right, but we haven't talked about databases yet, so it'll suffice. It's a repository of data. All right. So the user can search by either the name of the game or by the publisher. If the game ID is found, the program will display information about the game. If it's not found, it will display an error message. All right. So you've seen all this before. So I want to mention a couple things that are on here that we have not talked about before this semester. All right. The first one, you'll notice there should be a method in here that's called search for game, that searches for a game by name or publisher. And if it finds it, it returns the index. If it doesn't find it, it returns -1. This is the same way basically we did this previously. All right. The -1 might be a new wrinkle on here, but that's fine. And then show game info takes the index. If the index is valid, since we have 5 games, valid indices are 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. So if it is between 0 and 4, yes, then it'll display that game's information. If it's less than 0 or greater than 4, it'll display game not found. That's the first thing. And I think that makes sense because it's pretty much the way we did it before. Now, so what's new? This thing. And you're going to start seeing these for most of the programs that we do for the rest of the semester. And it may make little to no sense to you, which is okay. In many ways, the way that I refer to this thing is it is what's called a UML diagram. UML is an acronym that stands for Unified Modeling Language. Now, you may or may not be able to tell, but on this picture right here, we've got a rectangle that's split into 3 rectangles. So it's one big rectangle that's been split into 3. What you have on top is the name of the class we're going to create. So we must create a class called game.cs. So that's what's in the first third. Then next, in the second rectangle that's in there, these are all of your instance variables. So each time we come in to look at or create a new game, the game must have a name, it must have a publisher, and it must have a price. And you'll notice that if you look at these, it's kind of a convention that if these are going to be fields, if in other words, if these three things are going to be defined outside of any function or method that we have in the class, that you start them with an underscore. You don't have to do that. But we're going to basically create a string variable called underscore name. We're going to create another string variable that's called underscore publisher. And I wish Mr. Smith had made that a float, but I can't go in there and modify this. All right, but that should have been a double. In fact, we'll make it a decimal because that makes the most sense for a price. All right, so again, the first rectangle, the first rectangle in here is the name of the class. The second rectangle are the name of our instance variables. And the third one that you see in here, those are our methods. So we will have 4 different methods in the game class. The first method is the same name as the class. What does that mean? That means that the first method that you see there is the constructor. That first method is the constructor. All right, so that constructor will have passed into it a string representing the name, a string representing the publisher, and for us, it'll be a decimal representing the price. In addition, that class must have a get name, a get publisher, and a get price. All right. What this is very similar to what we did before. In fact, in many ways, it's almost identical to what we did before, but we're creating a lookup table. All right. So again, did I say anything in here that needs further clarification? Any questions on what we've gone over so far?
I think that made a lot of sense to me. I'm looking forward to seeing this in kind of in the code.
Okay. So and I get it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new product or a new project, and I'm going to do this from scratch. So I'm going to grab all of this stuff that's in here. All right, I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. You won't see this, but I'm just right now, all I did was I threw it into Notepad++. That's all. All right. But what I want to do then is I want to come back in and build, basically build what I want this to look like. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do, and again, you won't see this, I'm just going to come over to my desktop and I'm going to make a new folder on the desktop. All right. I'm going to make a brand new folder on the desktop that I'm just going to call CH12 OOP. All right. Because that's what this is. It's chapter 12 and it's the object-oriented programming stuff. All right. So I created that. With that said, all right, I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to close the Visual Studio that I had running because you said you didn't have questions on it. And I'm just going to start up a new instance of Visual Studio right now. I know you can't see this, I get it, but you know what I'm doing. I'm going to create a new project. All right. And it'll be a Windows Forms app. All right. And according to what we just looked at in here, that's the other one. It is what? It's called LB4 underscore game break. Okay. So that's what I'm going to call it. So it'll be LB underscore 4 game break. All right. I'm going to set my solution. I'm just going to call this chapter 12-OOP. And I'm going to set my location to this folder that I just created, CH12 OOP. All right. So L4 before game break, OOP 12, boom, looks good. click Create. All right, so let me change my share back so that you can see what the heck I'm doing now. And I have taken a picture that I'm going to bounce back and forth to, and you won't see it, but I just want this to look the way that it's supposed to look, in other words. So I'm going to start this the way I always start things, and that is I'm going to click on here. I'm going to rename my form. Am I right in assuming you can now see Visual Studio on here?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so I'll call this FRM. We'll just call it Game Break. All right. Yes, I want to change that. And because, again, I like doing this, I'm just going to change my background color. I'm going to make it something like a green there. So we've got that. All right. Now, when we create the interface for this, all right, so the interface that we're going to create for this, it looks like, okay, text box and then a button and then a button. So let me do this first. So I'm going to make a text box and a button on here. So let me put these in. We're going to have the interface built. Then we're going to take a break. After the break, we'll write the code. All right. So let's put in the text box. That'll be here. This is what we're going to want to search for. And we're supposed to have two buttons. I'm going to move that way the hay over. There we go. And two buttons. And they're going to be here. And here. All right. So again, all I'm doing is very simply creating the interface here. What else do we have in here? There's different ways that we can do this stuff, just so you know. But I want to show you the way that I did it. All right. So again, I'm not saying that this is, by no means am I saying this is the best way. But I came in here and quickly created 3 different labels. All right. So as always, because I like to do this, making my label darker, and I'm going to set the auto size on here to false so I can make this bigger. Okay, this is going to literally say name. This is literally going to say publisher. And this is literally going to say price. We'll change those all in just a moment. So name, publisher, and price. All right. And now I'm just going to copy this and paste, but I'm going to make these pretty big. So this name might be fairly big, so I'll make it that big. And that'll be the publisher, which isn't as big, but it's okay. We'll leave it like that. And then finally the price. All right. So here is my interface. Not beautiful, but functional. Move this down just a tad. There, that's pretty well centered. It looks okay to me. It's not great, but it looks okay to me. All right. So as always, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change the size on everything. All right. I should have also come in and I'm going to make it bold and I'm going to make it Arial because I just think that displays the best. So we've got all that. All right. Next thing I'm going to do, just because, again, I like doing this kind of stuff, and that is I'm going to go in and where it comes to my text align, I'm just going to make it middle. So everything is in the middle now. All right. All right. And I'm going to take this text box and I'm also going to make the text align in the center. And the buttons are fine the way they are. Okay. So it looks like I can now come in here, lock my controls into place and start doing this. All right, this right here is going to be my search term. Okay, that should make sense. So I'm just going to call this TXT search term. All right, there's nothing in it. This button right here is going to be my search button. So it'll be BTN search. I'm not going to even add an exit button onto this. We could, but I'm not going to. What did they put in there? I would double check. They've got a search and a clear. So that's what I'm going to do. So again, this one right here is going to just say search. The one next to it, this one is going to say clear. And it'll be BTN clear. All right. These three labels, this label right here is going to be the name. So I'm going to make it LBL name. And again, it'll say name. This one is the publisher. And I'm just going to make it a little smaller. So rather than saying publisher, I'm just going to make it say pub because I don't want to have to resize this thing. So this will be LBL publisher, but for the text in there, I'm just going to make it pub. Hopefully that is not too confusing. So there's the publisher, and this will be the price. So I've now got my LBL name, my LBL publisher. This will be my LBL price. And it will say price. Now I want, whoops, I wanted to say price. There we go. So I want the actual name to be here, but I don't want there to be any text. That's where the name will actually appear. So I'm going to put in, I'm going to call this instead of LBL name, because I've already used that, this will be LBL the name. That's what I'm going to put in here. This will be LBL the publisher with, again, no text in there. And finally, this will be LBL the price with, again, no text in there. As always, I will come in and I will set my accept button to BTN search, and I will set my cancel button to BTN clear, and I will set my start position to center screen. Finally, I will come in here and I will set my tab order, which will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The important ones are these first three. So clicking on here and doing a view tab order, again, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's do another view tab order to make that go away. When we click clear, what do we want to have happen? We want this to clear, this to clear, this to clear, this to clear, and we want our focus to go there. So this is going to be our search that we'll do after the break. This will be our clear. So I'll call this clear and set focus because, again, we're good programmers and we like to modularize. So I will come in here and write private void clear and set focus. All right, and that will say in here then txt search term dot text equals double quote LBL the name dot text equals double quote LBL the publisher, oops, not price, the publisher dot text equals double quote LBL the price dot text equals double quote, and LBL, I'm sorry, TXT search term dot focus. All right, so let's do a file save. Let's quickly run it and see if at least all of that stuff appears to be doing what it should be doing. So if I do put stuff in here, I can't put anything in here while it's running, but I should be able to click clear, and that appears to be working. The search doesn't do anything yet. It is 9 o'clock. Let's take 15 and come back at 9:15. When we do, I'm going to write the code for this. It is 9:15. I'm back. I hope you are as well. I did go in during the break and put in all the comments, including the actual inputs that we have here and everything else that was in there. All right. So, code that executes, etc. So there's not much in here right now. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to make the class. And the reason I'm going to make the class is because in here, in my form, I'm going to want to call some of those class methods. And if I'm, I don't have to make the class first, but if I call those methods on a non-existing class, I'll get errors. So I'm going to make the class first. Now, one thing I want to quickly show you, because I don't want to waste a lot of my time or your time on this. Bring this back up one more time here. So I'm going to change my share and then change it again quickly. All right, this is the picture that I just showed you. So remember, when we look at this, the class will have to be called game. So it'll be put in a file called game.cs. The class will have the 3 instance variables that are shown, and the class will have the 4 different methods that are shown. All right, so that is my template, so to speak, for the way the class is supposed to look. So I'm going to do that right now. We change my share back again. So that I'm back in Visual Studio. And let's create that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right mouse click on the name here, on the name of my project, which is LB_4 game break. I'm going to right mouse click on it. I'm going to choose add. And again, I can either choose new item in class or go down to the bottom here and choose class. And that's what I'll do. So it says I'm going to create a class in here and it'll be called game.cs. As soon as I do that, it made this. It set up a bunch of stuff for me in advance, including setting up the namespace for me. All right. Now, almost always, and I'm going to do it right here, you will change this. All right. Almost always. Again, you will come in here and change this. And I'm going to make this public. Now, there aren't any other classes, so I could just do this. I could just put in here class game. I could do that. It would work fine, but I'm going to put public in there. All right. All right. So the first thing I want to do is I want to set up those fields, and those fields are also known as instance variables. Because each time we create an instance of this, they will each have their own variables. All right. Now, what we were told is that these should all be read-only. And the first one is a string, and it's called _name. All right. Then we've got a private read-only string _publisher. And finally, we've got a private read-only decimal, and that'll be _price. All right. Now, it is very important, and again, I'm not trying to waste anybody's time here, but it is very, very important that you understand that's these. All right. So in essence, every time we're going to do a search, we're basically looking for a new game. So in essence, we are going to be creating a new game object. And the stuff that we put into those labels are going to be what gets put into _name, _publisher, and _price. All right. And like I said, that may sound simplistic or it may be hard to understand. I don't know. But either way, it's something that you have to be able to draw a correlation or whatever you want to call it between the two. All right. So those are our instance variables. Next, we were told we were supposed to have a constructor. And remember, the constructor is what ends up running whenever we create an instance of the game class. All right, it's got to be public. It has to have the same name as the class itself, so public game. It can't return anything, and it'll have a string passed in. We could call this name, publisher, and price. That's fine. We don't need the underscores, but we could if we wanted to. These are just copies. So string name, string publisher, if I can spell, and decimal price. Now that's running off, so let's just put each one of these on its own line. All right, and it's giving me that error because, of course, I need the curly braces. Okay, so what are we trying to do right here? This says that whenever we create a new game, it is expecting that we're going to have passed into us a name, a publisher, and a price. And you already know this, but it's getting those three fields from the three text boxes. So I can use my IntelliSense here. And right there, that is right there. That is my constructor. So this is saying, again, the expectation is when we create a new game, the game will have a name passed into it, a publisher passed into it, and a price passed into it. And it will end up getting those values from here and here and here. All right. Okay, so what's left to do? Well, we've got to write those methods. Remember, back here, it said we need a search for game and we need a game info. Well, we'll write those, but we'll write those in the other one. But again, sorry that I keep doing this, but I want to make sure that people are understanding these correlations here. And that is what I must do now is I've just written this. I created my class. I created my three instance variables. I created my constructor. So now I need a get name, I need a get publisher, and I need a get price. What you'll notice in here is there are no sets. And there are no sets because we're not setting anything. That stuff has already been set in the program itself. So literally, each one of these methods that I'm about to write are going to be about 4 lines long, and 2 of the 4 lines are going to be curly braces for each one. All right, so let's write these 3 methods, and then we will be done with this class. All right. All right. So these are all get methods. So I just put here getters. They're all gets. So public, string, get name. And what are we doing in get name? We are returning underscore name.
Can you switch your screen? We're still see the.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So we're starting to do these getters. The first one we want to do is we want to get the name. The order in which we put these 3 things is totally irrelevant. It doesn't matter a bit. But I'm just going to copy this. All right. And I'll have a get name. And then I'll have a get publisher. And finally, I'll have a get price. Now, when I do the get price, that'll have to return a decimal and not a string. And it will say for the return, it'll be underscore price. That is the entire class. So let's look at everything that's in there. It's not long. Looks like I don't need any of these, but I'll tell you what, I'll just get rid of those and do this. All right, so it's what? Not even 40 lines. So here is the name of the class, game. It has 3 instance variables, and you've seen this because I've gone back there a couple times to the actual document. So it has a read-only string called name, a read-only string called publisher, and a read-only string called price. All right. Then every time we create a new instance of a game, we must pass into it a name, a publisher, and a price. These things that are here and here And here, these three things are these three. And we're taking what gets passed in and we're setting these three based on those. All right. And then we just have our routines. Now, these could be written in different ways. I tried to write this and make this literally as intuitive as possible. So we've got a get name that returns the name, a get publisher that returns the publisher, a get price that returns the price. So in other words, we have three read-only methods in here. All right. And the reason that that doesn't matter is all of our data is read-only. Since all of your data is read-only, there's no sense in having any set routine, which is going to change the value. You couldn't do it anyway. Since this is read-only, I mean, if I tried to come in here and say something like return price plus 10, it's not going to work. All right, it may not even give me an error, but it's not going to work because it's a read-only field. That's everything. Any questions on the game class? Any questions?
So I think I get what we're doing here, but on the last one with the products, I feel like we were kind of jumping around a lot, and I didn't get a sense of why we were putting everything in these different classes, and I'm kind of getting it when we're building it from the ground up, but I guess I don't know. What really my question is, but
that's a good question, a remark, and a fair one. Let me answer it this way by first saying, this morning I was talking to one of the other instructors here, Mr. Parsons, and one of the things I mentioned to him, and he agreed, was that what a lot of businesses are doing today, it's the pandemic's fault. We can't hire help. It's the pandemic's fault. We had to raise our prices. It's the pandemic's fault. The reason that I'm bringing that up is what you get more than anything else with object-oriented programming is we are segregating out the different functions that we want to perform. Since we are segregating out the functions that we want to perform, what that means is we could have one group in here. Let's just assume for a second that this was a much more complex program than it is. We could have one group of people who are just working on the interface. We could have another group of people who are working on the game. So what we're doing again is we're segregating this out. I personally don't think that the example that Murak put in there as a first example is a very simple one. All right, there was a lot of stuff in there. You know, had they done something and done, tried to do something to make it easier, that might have been better. I don't know. All right. I don't know if I'm answering your question, if I'm making it any easier to understand. But again, when managers hear, oh, not only are we going to be able to bust this up between departments, but we can reuse it, the little cha-ching goes off in their heads. And they're like, okay, since we're having a hard time hiring people anyway, if we can reuse this code, that's good. All right. And that's one of the hallmarks. That's one of the hallmarks of object-oriented programming, is the fact that you are able to reuse. Now, the other things that object-oriented programming are known for, some of them we've started talking about already. All right. And there are three basic things. The first one is encapsulation and data hiding. We already talked about that. When we get to chapter 14, because I don't want to talk about it until then, we'll talk about inheritance. And then finally, when we get a little further on, we'll talk about something that's referred to as polymorphism. So, unbelievably long answer to your question, but the reason that we're doing this is that in a real life application, there's a good chance that there could be several groups. If we had a project, let's imagine we were using the product maintenance one. If you remember from before, we had a product class, we had a product DB class, and I think we had another class. I don't remember what product main or whatever it was. So you could have 3 different groups, one working on each one of those, and 2 other groups working on each one of the interfaces. So that's the biggest reason that we're doing this, to bust this up, is for reuse and the fact that multiple people, multiple different groups can work on different chunks at the same time. And as they mentioned in the book, there's also a chance that each one of these components that we're doing could potentially run on a different server, as long as the servers were linked together. So you tell me, am I answering your question?
No, that does make sense, and especially when they, as you said, when they get bigger, like it doesn't make a ton of sense when we're at 40 lines of code that we're separating.
No, not at all.
But when they get bigger, that does.
Right. I mean, because believe me, I've given this lecture before, and in a seated class, I remember there was a student who raised his hand and said, you know, your explanation was fine. I kind of get what's going on, but I have just one question. I knew what was coming, and it was, why are we doing this? You know, and I get it. All right. And C# is an object-oriented programming language. You have been using objects all semester. As I mentioned before, when you create a new form, you're making a new form object, which is part of the form class. When you create a new button, etc. But now we're taking control and we're grabbing the individual components that make up our applications and we're putting them in their own classes. Okay, so I'm going to do a file save. All right, for now at least, I'm just going to close this. I don't think I need the game thing anymore. And you saw this. All right, and now I'm going to come back to here and I'm going to actually go in and I'm going to write some code. All right. Now, the first thing to notice is we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. Again, we're only searching and showing. We're not allowing the user the opportunity to enter in additional information. That's one thing they did in the Muroc program that we're not doing in this example. I get it. All right. But again, we're taking small steps, for lack of better words. I'm not trying to inundate you with so much stuff that you're like, I just don't have a flipping clue. All right. So I'm going to come in here, and the first thing I'm going to do under this initialize component is I'm first going to create my global constant. All right. And I just called it, in fact, I made a couple constants. I call this max length. You can call it anything you want, but I said const int max length equal 5. And again, that will be the number of games in the list. Okay. Then I had another constant that was a string, and I just called it GNF because it's the same way I did it in the last program. And it's equal to game not found. And again, the only reason that I did that was so I only had to write it once. And if I decide later I want different error messages, so maybe rather than game not found, I want a game not found, publisher not found, etc., I could do that. All right. So that's the first stuff. Okay. And hopefully, like I said, you're going to ask if you have questions, but hopefully that just makes sense. Then I'm going to have a global variable. And that's going to be my list of games. All right. And I'm not going to write that, but it's the list of games and the publishers, etc. So it's all that stuff. All right. So it's going to be a list. It's going to be a list of what? Notice that when I type in a G here, it finds game in my IntelliSense. And it found game because we've already written the game class. If we had not yet written the game class, that wouldn't be there. All right, so it knows, okay, it's a list of games. And again, following conventions, I'm going to say this, and then I'll pick up the IntelliSense. So this is going to be my listing of games. I don't want a semicolon there. Why? Because I want to put the games in here. So I'm going to put in 5 lines. Each line is going to say new game, and it'll have a set of parentheses and a comma. Then new game, I'm going to have to fill this in just a minute. That's why I'm getting the errors. And new game. Of course, no paren after the last one, but I do need a semicolon there. I am making a complex variable right here. All right. Now, so I don't have to type a lot, I'm going to come up here and steal these. So the first one is this: players, unknowns, battle, etc., all that stuff. I'm going to put this on multiple lines, not to confuse you, but just so you can see everything. So I'll put those on multiple lines. This is Bluehole, and the price is $35. In fact, I think I can do it like this. So it'll be 35, but since it's a decimal, it has to be 35M. And you'll notice I don't have any errors. That's always a good start. All right, then my next one is League of Legends. In fact, I'm going to just grab all of it. Okay, it'll just make it simpler, and I'll have to bust it up in here. So I've got League of Legends. Riot Games. And for whatever reason, there is no price on that one, so it's 0M. All right, so that's the first two. Let's do the other three. So next we have Call of Duty Black Ops 3, which is from Activision. And it has a price of 60M. All right, I don't want, let's see, where are we here? All right, so yeah, that looks okay. All right, well, let's do the other two. So Battlefield 4, Electronic Arts, $20. And finally, the last one, which is Super Mario Odyssey, Nintendo, and that's $60. All right, so I'm asking you the question right now. Is there anything that I just put in right here in the blue that doesn't make sense?
No.
Okay, all I'm doing is replicating, all right, what was up above in the comment. All right, so, you know, again, what do we want to do? Well, I tried as best I could. All right, I tried as best I could to take this and modularize it. Okay, so in the search here, all right, so in my button or BTN search, well, I want to tell it to search for the game. And what I'm doing is I'm looking for its position in the list. So is it at position 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4? So I created an integer variable called position that I set equal to search for game. Now that's going to give me an error because I haven't written that yet, but search for game. Now, I was taught some of the stuff that I've learned in my life, I was self-taught, and some I've been taught by either YouTube or taking classes in college, etc. But they start all of their methods with a capital letter. I was told not to do that. So that's why mine is a lowercase, just so you know. All right. So what am I going to have to do? I'm going to write in here, private. It's going to have to return an int, and it's going to be called search for game. There's nothing passed into it. So now all of my errors are gone except for this one. So I'll just, I don't need to do anything here. So I'm just going to type in return 0, just so I don't get an error. All right. Now I've got my choice here. I can either write this routine next, this search for game, or I can write in the rest of the code for my search. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it makes more sense to write my search for game now. All right. And if we find it, we're going to be returning the position. And if we don't find it, we're going to be returning -1. All right. So again, I can go up, probably would be a nice idea. And I can grab this. And paste that in. Just putting in a little more documentation. I know it's repetitive here, but to me, it makes sense actually to do this. All right, so that's what we want to do in here. So let's do it. All right, this is going to be very similar to what we did before we did this using classes. But I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say string, search term, and that equals txt search term dot text. And again, I use that, I do it like this. So as I'm traversing through the list, I don't have to put this in here all the time. To me, saying search term is much more self-documenting than constantly putting that in. Again, that's me. You may or may not agree. All right. So I'm going to come in here and now I'm going to traverse through the list looking for either a game name or a game publisher match. All right. If a match is found, return the associated index. Do this. So if a match is found, return the associated index. There's only one F in if. All right. And finally, if a match is not found, return -1. Right? This is almost the same way again that we did it previously. Okay. Now is what's going to change in here. First of all, I don't need this. Okay. It's going to give me an error up above here because I'm not returning anything, but we're going to fix this right now. So I'm going to put it into a for loop, and I'm going to say for int, as I always do, else LCV for loop control variable equals 0. LCV is less than our max length. All right. Plus LCV. So that's going to loop through all 5 games, possibly. All right, unless it finds a match. Now, when we did this before, we always did it like this. Games, we'd say something like games LCV. We're still going to do that, but we're going to put a little bit extra on it. So we're going to say here, again, if name or publisher found, return position in list. All right. But that name and that publisher, we are now getting from here and here and here. All right. fact, we're getting from the search term, but basically we're going to fill it up here and here and here. That's what I should have said. All right. So just like we did previously in this for loop, we're going to put an if statement. And it's going to be a fairly complex if. So if games LCV dot now, notice, can you see my IntelliSense here or not on the screen? Can you see that box with the blue thing?
Yes, yeah, we can.
Okay. Well, here's where the magic happens. Now, instead of name, we say get name. And we say get name dot two let's do a two lower this time. We did two upper last time when we did it. All right. If games dot get name dot two lower, if that is equal to our search term dot two lower. All right. So if that happened, I do want another paren there, so I hate the way it does this. All right. So if that happens, okay, then we've got a match on the name, but remember, it's not just the name we can match. It's also the publisher that we can match. All right. So I need to put in here this or enter. I'm just going to copy all of this and paste it down here. All right, but I want to say now not get name, but get publisher. And that's got to be a little u, that's why it's complaining. All right, so again, I'm checking to see, just like we did before. All right, and I believe it needs another one here. Something is goofed up here with my curlies. We're going to figure it out right now. So got a paren here and a paren here. Technically, I don't need that. So this paren right here should be matching that paren there. All right. And then I've got a paren there and there, and a paren there and there, and a paren there and there. That actually should be right. I'm trying to figure out what it doesn't like here. So let's see. Bring up my error box, and it says invalid expression term. So it doesn't like this. And I'm wondering if that should be, there we go. And we need a semicolon. No, we don't need a semicolon. Do we need another curly here? Nope, that ain't it either. All right. So it is telling me that it's expecting another parenthesis there. There we go. So I know that's a little hard to read, so let me move it over. Can you see all that okay? I'm looking for a match. I'm saying, does the search term, which I put to lowercase, does it equal get name? So it's going to call get name 5 times, which is going to what? Return the name. So it'll return, you know, Activision or whatever the heck the thing is. So we're doing the same thing we did before. And if that's the case, we're returning our loop control variable. If we get down to here, then we've fallen out of the loop. So no match was found. Return -1. So we will return -1. So the takeaway here, what we have changed is, rather than doing this and saying in here LCV, okay, now we're saying LCV dot get name. We're telling it to go out to the class and run a class method on it. In this particular example, again, I'm not even going to lie to you and say, yeah, this buys us one heck of a lot, because it doesn't. But it is showing us the usage in here. At least it is showing us the usage of class methods. All right. Now we go back up to here. This has now been handled. We should now have a position. All right. So that's good. That's a start. At least we've got a position. So what do we want to do next? Well, if the position is between 0 and 4, in other words, if we've got a valid position, remember, if it's -1, we don't want to do anything. So we could write this in two ways. All right, I'm going to just say there, if position equal -1, let's just handle the error case first. We don't have to do that, but let's just do that. I'm going to call a thing that's going to be called show game not found info. I'm going to get an error because why? Because that particular routine has not yet been written. Okay, so I want to show game not found info. Well, that's pretty simple to write. Hopefully you've already figured this out. So I'm just going to grab that. I'm going to come down here and we'll put it down here someplace. All right, so no match found method, we'll just say. All right, so private void, it's called show game not found. And all we have to do is just say our three labels, LBL, the name, dot text equals GNF, game not found, LBL, the publisher dot text equals GNF, and LBL, the price dot text equals GNF. Now, I'm not positive of what I'm about to tell you, so this may not work, but I think we can already check it for no match. So let's see if we can. So I'm going to do a file, save all, and then I'm going to come in here and write this. And let's just put in some garbage. There we go. Now, right now, if there is a match, so if we come in here and we put in Nintendo and we click, it isn't doing anything. All right, it didn't give us that game not found. So if I run, if I were to run it again, all right, I know you can't see that, but what I'm saying is right now that part works. Okay, so again, if there was no match, we're going to just call show game not found. Else, guess what? There was a match. There was a match. So here we'll say no match found. And here we'll say just match found. We don't know where it was found. We don't care. But a match somewhere in there, a match was found. All right. And what we're supposed to do then is we're supposed to show the associated information. All right. But we want to make sure we show the right one. We already know what that one is because it's position. So we were told the other name that we're supposed to use here is show game info. All right. So we will call show game info and we will pass in the position. All right. Now it gave me that. It automatically, that was the autofill that did that. But we want to call show game info, not show game not found info. We're getting the error as always because we have not yet written that routine. So let's write that right now. And I'm going to put that above my no match found. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say match found for either game name or game publisher. Print associated info. So that'll be a private void, show game position info. That's going to give me an error until I fix it. And remember two things. Well, first of all, it's not returning anything, but I have to tell it what position is, and it's an int. All right, so nothing really new right there. All right, except we want to actually show the game info. All right, And this is where it's going to give us a chance again to use our classes. So this will be LBL the name dot text equal, all right, games. I can use position, that's fine. Position dot get name. I don't need the two lower anymore. All right. Then LBL the publisher dot text equals games position get publisher, and LBL the price dot text equals games position dot dot get price. And again, with all these, what you should see is the IntelliSense is kicking in to help us. Line these up, so hopefully it makes a little more sense. Now, the get price isn't going to work until what? Until we do a two-string on it, because we want to put it in currency format. All right. So let's just go through everything because we're done with the program. All right. So let's go through the whole program from the top on down. Not a super short or long program, 155 or so lines. All right. And that includes all the comments because I was pretty liberal with the comments. So we have two constants, max length, because that's how many games we have, and GNF for games not found or game not found. All right. We set up our list with 5 different games. Each game has a name, a publisher, and a price. All right. Then we came in, and when we began to search, we searched for the game. This is either going to return the actual position. So in other words, search for game will return list position if found. And let me put that. And it will return -1 if not found. All right. So we call that search for game. And because that's what we were told to call it. So we come in here and we create an alias in here, and then we actually do the search right there. And we're using the get name and the get publisher. We're not using the get price in this example because we're not told to search for price. If we find it, we return the position in the list, 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. If we get all the way through the for loop and fall down, it's not in there. So we return -1. So that is handling this. If it returned -1, we call show game not found. We weren't told to do that, but it's the way I did it. So we set all 3 of the labels to game not found, game not found, game not found. On the other hand, if we get down to this, it did find a match. So we call show game info as we were told to do, and it needs to know the position. Now this is maybe a little hard to read. So instead of position, let's just call that P. Remember, I don't have to use the same name. This is a formal parameter. This is not an actual parameter. So maybe that's a little easier to read. All right. So it's telling it to go through the games list and find the particular associated element and call get name from our games class and get publisher from our games class and get price from our games class. All right. That's everything. So my question to you is there anything that I've just gone over that I'm going to run it in a minute, but is there anything I just went over that doesn't make sense? Anything you need any further clarification on?
I think it's pretty clear. None of this stuff is that much different than what we've been doing.
Yes.
Other than, yeah, using the other classes.
Yes.
I'm getting there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and that's good. And if you told me, you know what, I totally 100% understand it, I'd either say you're smarter than I am or you're lying. And I don't mean to be funny or flippant or anything, but most people are not even to where you are. They're just, I'm going to have to look at this code for quite a while because I don't have a clue. All right.
It makes sense in concept for me at least.
That's all I can expect right now, really. So I'm going to run this, and when I run it, I am going to come in and change my share so you can actually see the run. All right. Well, let's grab a couple we know are in there. So how about NIN for Nintendo? Okay, well, looks like there's a problem because it's not finding it. So it must be looking for an entire match. I already know what the problem is. Let's just put in Nintendo here and see if it does find it. It does. All right. Now, you may or may not already have figured out what the problem is. Let me go back and switch my share because there's we got to change 2 lines and then it'll work. All right. Right now, what we said was when we did this thing and we made this check that we made inside of search for game, all right, he said dot to lower dot equals. That ain't what we want to say. You may or may not remember this, but we want to say, where are we? Come on, where are you? Where's that? There we go. In here, we want to say dot contains. And then, of course, another paren here and another paren here. Plus, we'll have to do the same thing here. Dot contains, and again, change this so there is a paren there and one more paren on the end. Because we were looking for an exact match. So NIN doesn't match Nintendo. All right, that was my error. All right, and I apologize, but again, I made it a little smaller, so hopefully you can see that. That's the way it should be. All right, so let's go back. I'm going to save it, check it one more time. We're almost ready for another break. All right. So let's see. Let me again change my share. All right. And now with NIN, it finds it. With MAR for Mario, it finds it. How about Activision? Just A. If I put an A in there, it's going to find something, but it's the first, or C, finds the first thing it finds. A. See that? It's just the first one that it finds. But if I say act, all right, there's Activision. All right, so it appears as though it works. And if I put in hello, doesn't find anything. If I put in Mario, it finds that. But if I change it to Mario's, it's game not found. All right. Am I right in assuming that I did the share and you can see everything that I just ran there?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that's the first one. And that's pretty straightforward. It may or may not have seemed like it, but really and truly, it is pretty straightforward. So we're going to take a break, but before we do, just give me a couple of minutes here. All right, I'm going to go back to here. And the next one that we're going to do, we just did game break. We're going to go back up and we're going to do this thing called flashcards. And just like before, I'm going to set up a list with 5 terms in it. They're all computer terms like CPU, etc. And when you click define, if it's in the list there, if it's in the list, all right, it's going to give you the definition here. Otherwise, it'll say, you know, I don't know that term or whatever. Okay. So when we look at that one, notice what it's going to say. This right here, where it says a variable is a name memory location, that is the same label as this one. But it can contain 2 different things based on whether or not there's a match. If there's a match, it gives you the definition. If there's no match, it gives you this. And it also adds then, all right, it also adds, it says, oh, that's a new term. So it gives you this text box where you can put in the definition and click add, and then it'll add it to the list. So unlike the last one, when we look here, It's called flashcard. So we're going to make a flashcard class. It'll have a term in it and a definition in it. It'll have one single constructor that will take in the term and the definition. We'll have a get term and a get definition. In many ways, and I get this, in many ways, this is going to very much mimic what we just did. All right. The program or programs that we do tomorrow, maybe we'll have time to do 2 of them. I don't know. They will get progressively harder. One of the ones I want to do tomorrow is this one. And you can see it's got a lot more to it in here. All right. And we may end up doing this one too. Now, what I'm going to do, just so you know, is I'm going to send you, I've already built the user interfaces for whatever it is we're going to do. And normally I would have you do them because that's part of the homework. But I don't want to have you spend any more time like I'm doing today where we're wasting time as I write, as I create GUIs for you. It's not really impressive and you know how to do it already. So tomorrow I'll send you 2 different GUIs. There won't be any code, but at a minimum, you're going to get the GUI for this one. And maybe we'll do one of these other ones. We already did game break. Maybe we'll do job estimate. Maybe we'll do tile estimate. I don't know. All right. So it is 10:05. Let's again take 15. All right. And come back at 10:20. And during that time, I'm going to build the interface and set all this thing up. All right. So I'll see you at 10:20. fine. All right, I'm going to start up in just a second here. I'm just copying some comments over, and then we'll start up. All right, and I think I've got everything I need, but we'll find out. All right. So let me start by asking the question. Let me close this and this. Can you see the flashcard app on your screen right now, or do I need to change my share?
No, it's up there.
Okay, good. So there's a couple things in here that I'm not going to say they're new, but they're different. And what I mean is when the program runs right now, it looks like this. I know you can't see it, but it looks just like it does on the screen. But we don't want this. I don't know that term yet. What does it mean? We don't want that. We don't want this text box here, and we don't want that button to show. All right. The only way we want it to show is if we put something in here that's not in our list. All right. Well, the first thing that we're going to do, and I'm not going to keep going back because I want us to see if we can finish this as close to 11 o'clock as possible. All right, is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create the flashcard class. And it's going to, again, look very similar to the one that we just did. All right, so I'm going to come in and do an add class. We will call it flashcard. And there it is. Again, I will change this to public. All right, and just like we did before, maybe I should have copied that stuff over, but we're going to have our read only instance variables. There are again two of them. Private, read only, they're both strings. Spell it right, Jeff. And it'll be underscore term, and another one which will be for the definition. Okay, nothing really new there. Okay, it's the same kind of stuff we did before. We'll have a constructor like we did before. Again, it'll be a public flashcard. And remember, constructors cannot have a return type on there. String T for term and string D for definition. I'll just shorten this time. All right. So public flashcard, what doesn't it like? Flashcard. Namespace cannot directly. Oh, we'll figure it out in just a second. All right, so public flashcard, string T, string N. So in here, underscore term. Here's the problem. I don't know why that curly braces right there, but it is. There we go. Okay. Maybe I put it in. Probably I did. And that is equal to underscore term. In fact, let me trade. That's just term. And no, I don't want that. I want this to be T. And finally, underscore definition is equal to D. All right, now that's pretty simple, and hopefully, I know you said you're on your road to understanding this, which I very much appreciate. All right, but that said, all right, that said now, hopefully everything that we've gone over thus far at least makes sense. All right, we need a curly there. There we go. All right, so we've got our two instance variables, a term and a definition. We've got our constructor, which will set those. And then we need our two get routines. Again, there's just on here, we're not told that there's supposed to be a setter. So I'm going to have public string get term, where we will return the term, and another public string get definition, where we will return the definition. All right. And again, like I said, honestly, I appreciate your candor and your honesty on this. And I'm just hoping that you're seeing a pattern here. All right. Now, just so you know, and it'll probably happen near the end of next week. Okay? We're going to come in and let's say let's pretend for a second that we made a class called car. All right? And a car has a lot of stuff in it, but let's just say we made a car and we just made it real simple. All right? Then or in fact, let's make it even more generic than that. Let's say we made a class called vehicle. All right? And all a vehicle must be is it must be able to move. That's it. Well, then we could make a car, which is a type of vehicle. We could make a boat, which is a type of vehicle. We could make a motorcycle, which is a type of vehicle, or even like a bicycle is a type of vehicle. So we're going to bring in what's called inheritance, and we'll be using that of type of property that I just mentioned to you. But is there anything that's in here? Like I said, it's a very much a mirror image to the last one that we did. Is there anything that's in there that you have any questions on?
No, I get this so far. Thanks.
All right. Okay. So there's our file and our save all. So let's go in and actually then write the code. For now, at least, I'm going to close the class file up. All right. And let's look in here. Let's just take a look at the comment to begin with. All right. So create a GUI app that helps students remember important terms. It can store up to 10 terms. So we can add up to 10. All right. The program comes with 5 definitions loaded. Okay. Users can enter a term to get a definition for that term, and it should be case insensitive. Now, we're going to make you put in the whole term. In other words, if it's CPU, you got to put in the whole thing. You can't just put in a C. We could change it for that, but what I'm saying is when we do our search, we're going to be doing an equals this time and not a contains like we just did. All right. Then if the user enters a term for which there is not yet a definition, all right, so if they enter a term for which there is no definition, all right, then what we want to do is we want to let them put in a definition by bringing in and making this visible and this visible and this visible. All right. So hopefully what I just said at least made a little bit of sense. All right. So we're going to do this kind of the same way we've been doing it, but there's one more thing that we're going to change and do something else first. And the first thing I want to do is I want to put in my global constants as we did before. And there will just be one. So it'll be a global constant. And again, it'll be max length. And again, this time it'll be 10. So const int max length equals 10. And again, that is the maximum number of list elements. All right. Then we will put in our global variables. And just like we did before, that will be our list. So global variables, even though there's really one. Okay, so list. And again, notice as soon as I type in list and I put in that first bracket and I type in an F, all right, and an L, it comes up and in the IntelliSense, it shows me flashcard. There it is. If I hit tab, boom. Now I'm going to be making a list of flashcards called flashcards, and it's going to be equal to a new list of type flashcard. All right. You always need the paren on the end. Okay. And now we're going to add our stuff. So I just used computer terms and I kept it pretty simple, I think at least. So new flashcard. And I said input. And that is data entered into a computer. All right. That should be new, not that's why I'm getting that error here. All right, so we've got that. I need the semicolon on the end. There we go. All right, and it'll be done. All those errors will go away in just a minute. So new flashcard. Okay, we've got all that. And we need another new flashcard. All right. And let's see. I'm going to make a change. Just let's see, FRM flashcards. I want to change the name of my class and I want to make it flashcard with an uppercase C. All right. It's not that we have to do that. I just want to do that. So I'm going to come here. I should have done it here and done a rename, and I'm going to call it flash card like that. All right. That should, hopefully that'll change everything. We'll see. All right. So let me come back then to my program. If I have to, I'll change it back again. I don't really care. All right. But writing my code then, this now will become flashcard, as will that. And that was one of the reasons I was getting errors before. All right, and that one's changed already. So again, flash card. The second one is processing. And I've got converting data into information. Then we've got another one, which is output, which is information. Oh my goodness, Jeff. Which is information generated by, how about from data? From data. All right. Next, we've got data. And that is unprocessed information. ERO. All right. And finally, we have information, which is processed data. I know that's real simplistic, but I tried to come up with something that I thought would be easy to do. All right, I'm just going to, because I'm a little squirrely this way, as you know, I'm going to line all this stuff up because it'll make it easier. That's good enough. All right, so what doesn't it like here? List says the namespace could not be found. Are you missing a using directive or reference? I don't think so. I removed those. I need using system.collections because I'm using a list and I removed that one. Generic. Sorry. All right. So now all my errors are gone. Okay. Very quickly. Any questions on anything I've done thus far?
No.
Okay. So what do we want to do? Well, okay, we have to come in here and I'll just do it basically in the order that the stuff is shown here. So when I click the define button, I'll want to do that. When I click the clear button, I'll want to do that. And finally, when I click the add button, I'll want to do that. Well, let's just get the simple one out of the way right away. All right. In fact, we'll just do them in order. I'll do the define and the clear. The clear is going to be a little different. All right, because when I clear, I want to clear what's in here and what's in here, but I want to make this invisible. I want to clear that and make it invisible, and I want to make that invisible. So it's a little different from stuff we have done previously, is what I'm saying to you. All right, so my define here. All right, so let's see. Let's first see if it's empty, because if we didn't put anything in there, there's no sense in going on. So if txt term dot text, my goodness, if txt term dot text is equal to nothing, that means no search term was entered. Or I should say no term was entered, no term entered. All right, I'm just going to do a message box. I probably should have written a routine for this, but I didn't. Dot show that I just said no term entered into text box. And here we'll say term text box empty. As we always do, then we'll do a message box, buttons with OK. All right, and this isn't really an error. Maybe they just omitted it accidentally. It's not that they put something wrong in there. So I'll put an icon and I'll put dot information. Okay, and we can just return because there was nothing in there. Well, let's see if that works. So I'm going to do a file save all. You won't be able to see the run. I get it, but I'm leaving that empty and I'm clicking to find. It does come up with a message box with a title of term text box empty and no term entered into text box. They are there. All right, and I have to set my focus back there too, which I did not do. So txt term dot focus. That shouldn't be anything new, so that shouldn't surprise you. If I get down to here, something was entered into there, right? I mean, that should make sense. Something was entered into there. So like we did before, I'm going to do int position equal, and I'll just say search for term. That's what I'm doing. I'm about to search for a term. I haven't written that yet, so I'm going to put that down here. Private void search for term. All right, and that won't be a void. It's got to be an int because it has to return a value that it's going to put into there. All right, now I'm getting an error here again because I haven't returned anything yet, but we're going to do that in just a second. Okay, and this will be very much mirror image. It won't be exactly the same. It won't be exactly the same, but it's going to be very similar to what we just did. All right, but all we have to check for is there a term? We don't have to check for a definition. We have to check, is there a term? So I'm going to say if txt term dot text dot, make it two lower. I'd already put all that stuff in lowercase. If that is equal to my flashcards, all right, LCV. Oh, I didn't put this into a loop. Let me do that first. So let me grab this and cut it. And let me put in our loop. So just like we did before, traverse through list looking for a matching term. If a matching term is found, return associated index. If no matching term found, return -1. Again, same thing we did before. So for int LCV equals 0, LCV less than our max length plus LCV. All right. Now, if true, return index. Okay. In fact, is there even an index that we have to return? Technically, there isn't. So let's do it like, we'll do it like this. I'm rewriting this on the fly. I'm going to make it even easier. If true, show definition. Okay. So what are we going to say? We're going to say if txt term dot text dot to lower if that is equal to our flashcards LCV dot get term dot to lower. All right, if that's the case, we know we found a match. All right, so what I want to do, and this should make sense to you. If it doesn't, let me know. I put in something where there's a term, so I want to have it show in here, but I want this and this and this to disappear. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So what do I want to do? I want to say LBL definition.text equals my flashcards LCV dot get definition. And I don't need to worry about whether that's in uppercase or lowercase. I don't care. But then I'm going to call clear bottom because that's going to clear the stuff on the bottom of the screen. All right. And I want it to say LBL definition dot text. That's the definition. Dot visible. And I'm going to set that equal to true. It probably already was, but then I'm going to return because I found it. All right. So I don't even need to check for this position like this. I can just do a search just like that and make this a void because it makes it a little easier. All right. The code. So I just called search for term. Now I've got to write this clear bottom and I'll write that in just a moment. All right. But I need an else on here because if I found it, I want to return, but not an else. But if I fall out of the loop, the term wasn't found. So term not found. Okay. And if that's the case, I want to go and be able to add it. But remember, I can only have up to 10 items in here. So term not found, and I'm going to say add, but only if there's room. In other words, if I have 9 or less items, I can add a 10th. But if I've got 10 items, I can't. So I'm going to say if flashcards.count, that's how many are in there. All right. If it's less than the maximum length, I can add it. All right. So if that's the case, what do I want to do? Well, I probably should have written another routine to do this, but I just did it right here. So I said LBL new term dot visible equal true. All right. I can show that. And then I want to say txt new term dot visible. That's equal to true. And then I want to say my button, which is btn add dot visible. I want to make sure that's true. All right. So I want to set everything up so that I am able to come in here and do everything I want to do. All right. The other thing I want to do is where the definition is up here. Okay. What I can do at least is I can make that invisible. There's no sense in making it visible, but I could just keep it there. There'll be nothing in it. So I can keep it there or I can make it invisible. I'll just keep it there. It doesn't really matter. But I want to now also say txt new term dot focus. I want to set the focus because I'm about to put a new term in there. All right. Now that's the if, but what about the else? So if there is an else, there's no room. No room in list. All right. So again, I did another show message box. So I'm just going to grab that one that I put in earlier. So message box not show. I'll say the list is already full. No more room in list. All right. Just kind of like we just did. Now, what else do I want to do? Well, I want to do a few things here. I want to take this where I am right now. All right. This txt, in fact, let's do it from the top. LBL new term dot visible. There's no room for it. So I'm going to set that equal now to false. My txt new term dot visible. I'm going to set that equal to false. and my btn add dot visible, I'm going to set that equal to false. I don't want any of those to show now. Why? Because there's no room. So I don't have that there anymore. All right. Plus, I'm going to go back and do my txt term on the main text box, and I'm going to set the focus there. And if this isn't making sense, give me just a second, and then hopefully it will. All right. Now, for my clear, so I'm going to write two things in here. I'm going to call clear bottom, which I still haven't written. And I'm also going to call clear top. So I kind of separated this into two different portions in here. So they're both short, but private void clear, we'll clear the top part first. And we're going to say in here, all right, txt term dot text. We want to make sure there's nothing in it. Our LBL definition dot text. We want to make sure there's nothing in there. Let's see. And we want to set the focus. Okay, so that'll handle the clear, and really doesn't matter which order I do these in. It's going to call them both anyway. But I've got a clear top, and now let's do the clear bottom. All right, and that literally is going to clear the stuff that's in the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to say LBL new term dot text, dot visible equal false. LBL, it's TXT. TXT new term dot visible is equal to false. And in fact, even before I do that, I should make sure there's no text in there. So TXT term dot text equals nothing. TXT new term dot visible is going to be equal to false. And my button has to be false. And I realize too, because some of this stuff we haven't done before, not just the classes, but some of the other stuff we haven't done before. So it might be a little hard to wrap your head around exactly what's going on here. But I think in a minute, when you see it run, at least hopefully it'll make sense. One thing I want to do, I want to make sure that I do, is when I start to run the program, I want that to be invisible, that to be invisible, that to be invisible, and I don't want anything in there, and I don't want anything in there. All right, that should make some sense to you, hopefully at least. So when the form loads, what do I want to call? Well, I want to basically call clear top, and that will clear all the stuff up on the top. And then I want to call clear bottom. Okay. All right. Now, am I missing anything? Hey, with me, you know, it's always possible. So I was going to say, I need to put something in this add routine. In this load, I could have written another routine. You know, I could have said clear stuff. And then down here, private, void, clear stuff. It's a little bit of overkill, to be honest with you, but I could have done that, and I'll just leave it in there because I've got it now. Now, in the add routine that's right here, there's really not a lot that we want to do. All right, but this is what's going to run when that add button is clicked. So this will be handle new term. All right, so we will call a routine. Here's a surprise that we'll call handle new term. All right, and we'll write it right below. So private, void, handle, new term. All right, and we'll write it right now. So give me a second. There we go. So let's write it. All right, I'm about to go in and add a brand new flashcard. So I have to say flashcards dot add, and I want to add a new flashcard. Remember, when I add a new flashcard, you should get this. When I add a new flashcard, I need to provide it a term and I need to provide it a definition. Well, we've got those. We've got TXT. All right. This is going to be our new term. All right. And it's going to be our new definition. So this is really TXT. What do we call this? So this is TXT. Oh, that actually should have been called TXT new definition here. All right. This is term, but that should be new definition. I'm going to leave it the way it is, not to confuse you, but I just don't want to keep changing a bunch of code where I can potentially break something. So this will be TXT term.text, and the other one, which should be TXT definition, will be TXT new term.text. Again, I'm sorry if you find that at all confusing. I apologize. All right. So that's the first thing that we want to do. All right. Now we want to say LBL. We want to put in our definition. So our definition dot text equals TXT new term dot text. And I'm rewriting this on the fly because I see errors in my own code. So if for some reason this gets a little screwed up, I apologize in advance. I'm going to do another show message box. And I'm going to say term added to list. And here we'll just say successful add. And again, as always, we will put in our OK button. And we will put in our icon. Again, it'll be a dot information because it actually is a good thing. All right, so this is not show message box. Of course, this is message box.show. All right. Now it says here this, okay, it's not giving me any errors. Could there be anything wrong in here? Yes. All right, let me run it and see what it does. How's that? So the terms we can check on now are input, processing, output, data, and information. So I'm going to do a file save. Before I go in and try to add new ones or do anything else, I'm going to run it and change my share. Whoops, try that again. I'm going to run it right there. Come on, run, would you? There we go. And I'm going to change my share so you can actually see the run. All right, can you see the run on the screen right now?
Yes.
Okay, so data, unprocessed information, information, processed data. All right, processing, converting data into information, input, data entered into a computer, output. Okay, well, it's giving me an error. It says index was out of range, so there's something wrong and output wasn't one of the ones in there because I spelled output wrong stupidly. All right, so I still have it wrong. Output, there we go. So let me save it and run it one more time. All right, and we'll check, we'll get that error fixed in just a moment, so. All right, I'm running the program one more time. And of course, my share probably isn't showing anymore, so I will re-show you the share because with a new run, it gives me a new share. And it didn't run it yet. All right. There we go. All right, so I've got input, good. I've got output, Good. I've got processing. Good. I've got data. Good. And I've got information. Good. All that stuff works. All right. If I do put in something that's not there, hello. All right. And I click define, it's giving me that error. So we have to look for that right away. So that's all right. It's good to know, at least that's something to look for. That said, and I'm going to check this right now, but before we do, all right, very quickly then, we set our maximum length to 10. We created 5 things in the list to begin with. So it's a list of that size, but we made it size 10. All right. Now I'm looking through my code because as you guess, I'd already written it just to make sure I didn't screw anything up. All right. Okay. Now, one thing I could do in here if I wanted to is I could put in here max LEN, and that would make it 10 to start with. That's not going to affect it. I'm still going to get the error because there's an error in my code. So when we defined, we said, is that, if there's nothing in there, we just give you an error message and we get the heck out. If we get down to here, something in top text box, we don't know what yet. So we call search for term. All right, then we search for term. And again, that's where our error is. All right. So as it says, we want to go in and we want to traverse through the list. All right. And let's see. Here's the problem right there. It's doing it 10 times. We only have 5 things in the list. So we want to say here flashcards dot count.
Could you switch your share real quick?
Yes, I will. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate being kept on my toes. All right. So this originally said flashcards right here. This said flashcards dot max length. No, that would search for 10 things and there's only 5 in there. So now it'll only search for 5. All right. So I'm going to save it and I'm going to run it again. And I'm going to change my share again because now I should be able to go in and add more to it. And when it gets to 10, it shouldn't accept anymore. We're going to see if that works. So again, just to do my 5, make sure I didn't break anything. Output, input, data, information, and processing. All right, now is the big reveal. All right, I'm going to put in here CPU, which isn't in there. And I'm going to click define. All right, I don't know that term yet. What does it mean? I'm just going to put in here central processing unit and click add. And it says term was added to the list. All right, well, it didn't call my stuff in here, and that ain't good. So let me clear it myself. And now let me see if the CPU is put in there. And you can see that it is. So there's still a little issue here as far as me clearing stuff. We'll fix that in a moment. All right, let me escape. Let me put in another term, computer. All right. And it should say again, I don't know what that is. What does it mean? And let's say electronic device that makes our lives easier. Click add. It was added, but again, this is screwed up. So I'm going to manually click clear. I'm going to put in here hardware. This should be my 8th one that I'm putting in. Define. All right. Physical computer components. Click add. It's been put in. Clear. Software. And this should say something like instructions written by a programmer. That was again added, so that should be our 9th one, I believe. Programmer, And we're going to put in here, I'll be a little funny, people who work too hard for not enough money. And again, that was either the 9th or the 10th. I'm not sure, but I'll clear it. I'm going to try to put in another one. And we'll just put in here, I don't know, give me some computer term. I'm going to say RAM, which is random access memory. The list is already full, so it doesn't take it. All right. And it does come in. It should be coming in now and clearing all that out. And it's not. So the only thing that's left for me to fix on here is the clearing that's taking place. All right. Now, when I call, and I'll get my share back right now. When I come in here and I call clear right there, it should clear the top and clear the bottom. Okay. And clear the top should make sure that term is cleared and the definition is cleared. All right. And that this is cleared. Now, when I put something into the add routine and I call handle new term, that's the problem, is I'm not calling anything after that. So I should call this clear stuff. All right. Hopefully now that has fixed everything. We're going to see. I'm going to give it one last run. Is there anything that you need me to go through in here?
I don't think so.
Okay. Like I said, in many ways, this is a mirror image of the one that we wrote previously. And I did that on purpose, thinking that I'm not saying you or anybody else, but some people may want to take the time to go back again and use, maybe even get a hard copy or have the other one up in another window and then write this one themselves to see if they can get it done, because they are so similar. That was why I decided to do it this way. All right. So I'm going to do a save all and I'm going to run it one last time. Let me change my share. All right, you know this as well as I do. There's 5 terms in there. I don't think I have to put them in again. All right, so there are 5 terms in there right now. I'm going to make this real simple. Term 6, it's not in there. Def for term 6. Now when I click add, everything does clear like it should. Term 7, def for term 7. Term 8, def for term 8. Term 9, def for term 9. And then finally term 10 and def for term 10. 10. All right. Oops, not that. Clear. Let me try it again. Term 10. I don't know if it put that one in or not. I screwed up. And define. No, it's not. So def for term 10. Click add. Now it should tell me the list is full. So term 11, click define. The list is already full and it should, I'm not clearing, but I should do a clear right there. All right, so I'll do a clear top and a clear bottom just in case, and that's everything. All right, so let me change my share back. We're just about finished. Thanks for sticking with me through the entire thing here. And let's see. All right, so again, we came in, we set the maximum length of our list to 10. We pre-populated it with 5 things. We checked to see if there was nothing entered into our search term. If there wasn't, we gave it a message box and we returned. There's nothing more to do. If we get down to here, something was put into the text box, so we have to search for it. So we again traverse through our whole list. We're looking for a match in here. We're making them both lowercase. If we find a match, we are basically, let's see, we're calling get definition. And that get definition should be filling up this right in here, and it has been. All right. So we call that, and then we clear the bottom portion because we shouldn't be showing anything. We make this definition. It should already be visible. I really don't even need this. It should work without it, but that's fine. Then we return because we're done. If we iterate all the way through the list and don't find it, then we have to see if there's room for our list. So if the list has still got less than 10 members in it, all right, then we grab what we just put in there for that new term. And it really, again, should be new definition. Okay, we already had the new term. Okay, and we basically allow you to put in the new definition. Okay, so what I'm going to do, not in front of you, but what I'll do later is I'm going to change this TXT new term to TXT new definition because it'll make the program read better. Otherwise, the list is full. So we did all that stuff. And again, I could still come in here and call clear stuff. All right, so I can come in here and call clear stuff. Okay, and that should clear everything if there's anything in there. The clear button clears both the top portion, which are the things on the top, the two things on top, and it sets the focus. The clear bottom clears the two things. Basically, it makes that label visible, and there's only one thing to clear, and it makes the button visible, and it makes that term there visible, which again should say definition. The add comes in and calls a new routine called handle new term, and then it clears. So that instantiates a new flashcard object and passes into that object, all right, the new term and the new definition for the new term. Okay, and then it sets, make sure that the labels definition is set. On the load event, we call clear stuff because we want to start with a clear slate. And clear stuff just calls clear top and clear bottom. Any questions on anything?
Not right now, no, I'm starting to understand it more.
Okay, so tomorrow, last time I plan on changing my share. All right, but tomorrow, come on. So tomorrow I am going to go through, we've now gone through this game break and we've gone through this flashcard thing. So we're going to do a couple tomorrow that are a little harder. I'm going to do the bank login. Now that might take quite a bit of time. So right now I'm planning on doing two, but we may only do the one. Friday is a lab regardless. Whatever I don't finish on tomorrow with this example, I'm going to probably do, I don't know, either the job estimate here or the tile estimate, one or the other. And I'm actually going to look and see which one seems harder, and I'm going to do that one. All right. So that one, I'll if there's time tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. If there's not time, I'll do it on Monday. All right. So I'd rather do one tomorrow, even if you're done by 10, and give you some time to let that sink in, then do another one on Monday and let that sink in. So you'd still get the equivalent of a lab period, but you'd get all of it on Friday, but half tomorrow and half Monday. Then Tuesday, we would do a pre-test, and Wednesday would be your test. Does all that make sense?
Yes.
All right, and tomorrow I will go over, I'm going to look at these tonight and see what I think you have to do and what we can just skip. All right, thanks again for sticking around, and I will talk to you tomorrow at 8:05. Have a good day.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks.